So it's been a while. Hey everyone, welcome back to my channel. That sounds really awkward. Okay. Hello and happy New Year's to everyone. Thank you so much for clicking on this video, and if you haven't already, please hit the subscribe button and turn on your post notifications so you don't miss any of my videos, because although I have been on a hiatus for who knows how long, I am back, very excited. I feel like I say this all the time, every time I take a hiatus, but you know, we're manifesting all the things in 2022. So with all the positive energy that I do have, we are gonna set the standard in staying consistent, doing weekly uploads, and just making content that's fun, exciting, and enjoyable, hopefully to me as well as for you, most importantly. So very excited to share with you today my 2022 reading goals, as well as my January TBR, where I randomly generate books that are associated with my unread TBR list. You know, it's gonna make sense once I get into this video. I will also acknowledge that I'm gonna be including timestamps for all the different parts of this video because I have been away for quite a bit. I do feel like I owe you all just a hello, an update, what's been going on. And then I'm also going to be sharing with you a section video. This is all the same video. I'm going to be sharing with you some clips that I have in organizing my 2022 reading tracker, where I literally sit down and document every single one of the books that I own into a spreadsheet, organize them into a read and a not read pile, and then use the not read pile to randomly pick books that I'm going to be reading for January. So a lot to do in this video, very ambitious of me, but you know, I'm just gonna have to start off really ambitiously, and then we'll just like even it out as the videos go along, I'm assuming. But yes, that's the plan for today. I don't know what else do I usually say. Oh, all the links and such will be in the description box, along with all of the books that I mention, and like I said, I think I already told y'all, but the timestamps will be there. I'm highlighting the timestamps because y'all, this is my first video since I think 6 months ago, and I'm gonna be rambling because that's what I do when I'm nervous. So I apologize in advance, but that's just what it is. Hopefully the timestamps will just resolve all the issues that I have for this video. But yeah, if you're excited to see what my list looks like and all the books that I own and all the books I have read and haven't read and the books I plan to read this month, then just stay tuned and let's talk and feature many Enni endings. You know, it kind of was like muscle memory saying that, so I'm feeling a little bit more confident. Not really. I'm just gonna say I feel a little bit more confident. But hello everyone who is a returning watcher of mine. That sounds kind of weird. Hello to everyone who has previously watched my videos, and to those who are new and are just nosy and want to find out what I've been up to. So yes, I apologize. I have been on an unwarranted hiatus and gave no explanation as to where I am. I kind of just dipped and said I'm not making content. But really it has nothing to do with, you know, my lack of wanting to create content or my lack of reading, or, you know, actually I will not say that because I have not really read a lot since I started my hiatus. But regardless, what really happened was that I was feeling burnt out. If you have been following my channel for a while, you know that last year in the spring of 2021, I had graduated from the University of California, Berkeley, and I went into a full-time job right away. Like literally 2 weeks from graduating, I went full-time, and I've been working a 9-to-5 ever since, as well as my other side jobs. So I was just feeling completely burnt out by July, and I didn't feel the best is what I'll say. And so juggling a YouTube, a Patreon, my side business, and a full-time job, and just graduating, and extracurricular like hobbies, and balancing service projects and community events that I attend, I was just feeling absolutely burnt out. And I wanted to take some space to digest everything, and just have a check-in with myself. And so that's basically where I've been the past couple months, just growing personally, you know, career-wise, mentally, physically, all the things. I've just been kind of focusing on myself and making sure that I'm okay, because I'm way too young to be feeling burnt out. So that is what I've been doing. I also want to say thank you so much to those who DM'd me and reached out and just checked in. It really meant a lot. And although I wasn't active on my Bookstagram, I really am appreciative of all those messages that I did see when I logged back in a few weeks ago. So just thank you so much. And thank you to everyone who has continued to support this channel and to support me and to just check in and watch my content. It's really humbling and I'm really appreciative of that. So just a big thank you and a big miss you all. Like, I always am thinking of you all, and it really sucked not making content and being able to talk to you all and give you all an explanation or give you all an update on what I was doing. But that was just how the cards were dealt in my favor when I did decide to go on a hiatus. So yeah, but I'm here now. Hello. But I hope you all have been well. I hope everyone's holidays and the new year is bringing you all happiness, safety, health, peace, and just trying to, you know, spread some positive vibes, because it's been rough, y'all. But that is all for my intro slash hello again. So now I'm really excited to share with you all my 2022 reading tracker Excel slash spreadsheet that I created. So there's some background information. One of my goals for 2022 was to be intentional with my reading goals and the books that I was reading, because I fell into kind of like the booktube hype of always wanting to buy books constantly, and now I have way too many books that I have not read and I keep buying them. And so in order to minimize this, I have decided to sit down and just write all of the books that I own. So in this next few clips, you're gonna be seeing just an overview of me sitting down at my desk and documenting every single books I have. And it was actually not too long, but it was a process. It's nowhere near done because I have to go back and do the authors for every single one of these books, the genres, etc. But what you will see is me listing all the books that I have and then organizing them into a unread and a read pile. So the context behind this is that I really want to track how I've been doing and how my reading goals are being accomplished. And one of the ways that I like doing this in my work, in my daily life, is to check things off or like cross things off list. So I want to create a spreadsheet where I'm able to kind of track this and then also, you know, go in and do something that will kind of give me a routine to make sure that I'm accomplishing my goals. So that's what I'm bringing into 2022, and intentional reading goals. So after I did this list, I randomly generated numbers that are associated to the number of books, or the book that corresponds to the number. You know, it'll make sense once you see it. Basically, I randomly generated numbers that picked books for me in my unread pile for me to read. So I hope you're excited, because now we're gonna go into past Christine and look at that tracker. So we are here. This is future Christine doing a voiceover for past Christine, because as I am editing this video, I realized that the clips that I filmed last night, which is these clips of me doing my tracker, are all static when I'm talking, because in the midst of setting up my camera, I guess my microphone got unplugged. So here we are. But nonetheless, welcome to me setting up my 2022 reading tracker. So, as you can see here, I have a new setup, so I apologize that the angle is just so awkward. I'm trying to figure out how to do this. And by this, I mean shooting film that's not just me sitting down in front of a camera and having actual angles. So, here I am designing my template. So I actually designed this on the side. And while in the middle of designing this, I was like, maybe I should film this in case other people might want to do the same thing or might be inspired to also create their own reading tracker. So I clearly already have some things on here, but this is just a Google Excel, and I just have the title on the top with the book title, the genre. I'm going to be adding the author in a little bit, but I also include the date I started a book, the date I finished a book, and I also want to track any of my notes for the book. So, one thing and goal that I have for 2022 as well is to be more intentional about how I'm recommending or talking about a book. I want to stray away from just giving star ratings because to me they were a bit arbitrary. And so I want to be more intentional, and by doing so, I want to be more detailed and thorough with who I'm recommending this book to, why I like or dislike a book, and who I think is the target audience or the people that might enjoy this book. So that's why I have those. At the bottom, I also have 3 worksheets. So you'll see the master list, and now my camera is panning awkwardly. I think here I was saying that I'm going to be documenting every single book that I have, but you already know that. But yes, at the bottom I have 3 different worksheets, and that is the master list of all the books I own, as well as another worksheet, which is my unread pile, and then another worksheet, which is my read pile. So what I'll be doing is constantly updating, and actually it'll formulate for me in Google Sheets once I input the formula, but all the books that I do read will just go in the read pile. All the books that I still haven't read goes in the read pile. So right now you're seeing me struggling to add a new column so that I can also document the authors as I begin to go through and sit down and write every single book that I own. So this is how the tracker is looking right now, and in a few seconds I'm gonna get started. When I tell y'all that I was so scared that I was gonna be sitting here for hours and hours and hours writing and documenting every single book I have, it didn't end up taking that long, but it was a process. One thing as I paused right here and said that I was beginning was I realized that I couldn't see all the author names on the spine. Usually it's just the last names. So I was like, oh my gosh, I'm in for a ride. So what I ended up doing is just documenting the titles of the books first and using that to just move this video along. And then in my spare time, I will be going back in to add the author. As you can see here, I'm just like, should I do the genre? Should I do the author? No. So I end up just deleting all of this and just going through and writing the titles in. So I'm just gonna speed the video up for you all and get started with documenting the books. And we are back. So at this point, I had documented all 224 books that I own on my shelves. And I do want to mention that in this list, I actually didn't end up including books that I didn't have on display. So I kind of have two rows of books on my shelves, and the books that I put towards the back of the bookshelf are books that I have and own because I needed them for class while I was in college, or books that I had to read for class. So I didn't include those. I didn't include any like autobiographies or any of the self-help books that I have. And I didn't include books that I know I definitely don't want to read or touch ever again. So those are absent from my list, but everything else is fair game on here. So now we get into the fun part where I get to organize this master list into my read and unread pile. So what you see me doing right here is finding a color, because I always just have such a hard time deciding colors. And all the books that I have read, I highlight in blue, and all the books I have not read, I highlight in red. So that's what I'm going in doing. Yes, this is a very tedious process, but honestly, it was really fun to do. I got really excited and really amplified my want to get back into reading excessively again, because I got to visualize and see in front of me all the books that I have not read and got me excited about reading. So I hope you enjoyed this little montage as I go through all of the 200 plus books and color coordinate them. But yeah, we'll just go ahead and keep doing that. So at this point, I have color coded all 224 books that I have into either the unread pile or the read pile. So as I go through this list, you can see that there's an overwhelming number of books that are still unread, and I am so fortunate and glad that I did this, because I honestly didn't think it was this much. But I do want to note that in the red pile, I also included books that I have started but not finished, as well as books that I have read before, but I either didn't like it or just want to give it another try. So those are also included in my unread pile. And so now we get to go into the fun part where I put in a filter so I can sort through all of my unread books as well as all the books that I have read. So you're going to see me struggle a little bit, but it won't be a Christine anything if I don't mess up and then learn from my mistakes. So we're just going to stick with it. But what I'm doing here is I put a filter on my master list where it would just cycle up all the blue, which is all the books that I have read. And from there, I am just going to be copying and pasting all of the blue and putting that into my red worksheet. So I tried this a couple of times because I can't make my mind up if I'm including the authors that I do have listed or know of. But I eventually get there. So you'll see me just paste all the blue in. And then I'm going to double check my work as always. And then go back into the master list. And then I'll do the same thing for the red pile. So filter it, shows up all the red that I color coded, copy that, and then I'm just gonna paste it into the unread pile. But again, have to struggle through that a bit as well. So now I have all my lists. I have my master list, my unread list, as well as my read list. And I'm now noticing that the red columns are in unread, and then red as in I read something is blue. So that's a little bit confusing, but hopefully you all get what I'm getting to and how I organize this. But yeah, here is the final list from my 2022 reading tracker. It was a process, but boy, am I thankful that I did this. So now I'm just cleaning up, reformatting, and then we get to do the fun part, which is where I get to do the random number generator, which corresponds to now this new list of unread books, and pick my January TBR. So after all this organizing, it is finally time to randomly generate my January TBR based on my unread book pile. So here I just have it pulled up on Google. The minimum is 3 and the maximum is 121 because those are the numbers that are associated with the list of books that I have in my unread pile. So now we get to generate and pick a book from my January TBR. So, the first book that I ended up generating is. Okay, this is taking a long time, but 69. So, it was a real chaotic night, and I think 69 was meant to be to handle my chaoticness. But that book, you can't see that well, but it is Nocturna. And that is the first book that I picked for my January TBR. So here is Nocturna. I ended up picking up this book at Half Price Books a few months ago, and I actually still don't know too much about this book. But I did mention in the clip that I absolutely love the map on this book. I love book maps. I know people are kind of on the fence. Some people just really don't care. But I always am fascinated by book maps, and I think they're really helpful in me visualizing the world and really putting myself into a book. So here it is. It involves magic, some royal drama, which, are all things that I love in a book, if you know me. So if this is of interest to you, I'm excited to give you all my thoughts at the end of the month. But very, very, very excited that this is finally on my TBR book. And now we get to generate the next book that I have on my TBR, which is number 76. So I was really surprised that I ended up getting this book because I had mentioned in an earlier clip of this that this is one of the books that I added in my unread pile because I wanted to reread it again. And it is Daughter of Smoke and Bone. So I read Daughter of Smoke and Bone before, but I didn't enjoy it, and I really want to like this book because I feel like everyone else likes this book. So this is one of those books where I'm like, I need to read it again. But that is one of the books that I will be reading in January. Very excited for it. So I didn't show it in the last clip, but I'm highlighting all of the books in purple that I am reading for my January TBR. So here is my copy of Daughter of Smoke and Bone. I have had this for so long, and this is the old cover as I'm showing you here. Laini Taylor did come out with new released covers recently, and those covers are stunning, but I would have bought them if I had liked this series, but I didn't. However, again, positive energy. Hopefully, this reread will end up being better than my read of it last time. But this is a fantasy book, like I said, written by Laini Taylor. And from what I remember of this book, there are, like shapeshifters or people who are humans but have like animal characteristics. And there's also like inner space travel. So there's a lot that I don't remember. Again, I read this book way before I joined BookTube, so it's been a while, but hopefully I will enjoy this reread. Now, the third book that I ended up generating was number 101. Now, this was one of those books where I was like, ugh, there's no way. So that book ended up being Serpent and Dove. Now, I actually have read Serpent and Dove, and I DNF'd it about 30% of the way through. So I was kind of contemplating in this moment whether or not I do want to read this or if I'm just gonna leave it as is on my unread shelf and be okay with it because I really couldn't get into that book and I read it fairly recently. So I think I read it in like July. So it hasn't been that long, and because it hasn't been that long, I was kind of debating, should I read this again right now? And I ended up deciding no. So I just want to show you all what the cover is. I'm sure many of you have seen this book. A lot of people rave about it, but I just couldn't get into it, and I didn't really want to get into it again this month because I also didn't want to get into a slump. So I decided to opt out and use a cheat on my random generated list of books to read in January and actually put this down. But we're still gonna pick another book, y'all. So we'll be okay. The next book that I generate is number 59. And actually, this was a really exciting pick that I generated, and that was The Memory of Babel. And I don't know if I'm pronouncing that right, but this is actually one of the last books in A Winter's Promise series. And so, because that's the third book and I haven't read the first book, I ended up picking A Winter's Promise, which is book one of this series, to read in my January TBR. And y'all, I have been wanting to read this book for so long because The Winter's Promise is a winter inspired book. I always was like, I'm going to read this book in the wintertime. And I've had this book for 2 years now, and I've never touched it in the winter. But because it's January, it's still cold, still kind of winter, I'm deciding to read this, and I was very excited that it generated this for me so that I can finally cross this off my list. Now, this is also another book that I don't know too much about. I do know that there's kind of like a forced marriage or like a forced partnership that goes on, and I'm very interested in that. It's also pertaining to royals, another thing that crosses my list off of books I'm interested in. And I believe there's also a different kind of magic system. So, again, all the things that I absolutely love. Here is the cover of the book, and I absolutely love the cover for this entire series. They're so beautiful, and I love this like sketched kind of simple look to it. So I'm just really excited to finally get into this is the end of that story. The next book that I generate for my January TBR, which I'm so nervous, y'all, at this point, but the next book is number 35, and that book ended up being Blue Lily Lily Blue, which is book 4 of the Raven Boys cycle. Um, and I have had this series for the longest time. This is a series that I've had prior to BookTube, and I've never touched it. I don't know why. It definitely is something that I would be interested in reading. One of the main characters has a clairvoyant mother, and so I believe she starts inheriting or showing some of those powers when she meets this boy who is a part of like the Raven Boys something. That's what they call themselves, but it's just four boys. And so when their lives get intertwined, things happen. So I'm very interested in figuring out what happens in this entire series. And it's a quite small book. So I'm very positive that I will definitely finish this in January. Here is what the Raven Boys looks like, and I mean it's an old school kind of cover. Like I said, I had these books way before I joined a booktube, had them on my shelves for a while. Don't know why I never started reading them, but very old school. The back kind of mentions what I already said, but again, I don't know if it's correct. So if you want to pause here and read through the synopsis, you can. But from what I remember, there was clairvoyance, there were boys that she was meeting, and there are things that they can't explain all of a sudden. And so, very excited to have this on my list again. And I'm just so thankful that I have this unread pile list organized now because I would never have willingly picked up this book to read. It would have just sat on my shelves, to be honest. So, super excited to finally get into this. I don't even know what number book I'm at now, but the next number is number 52, and I was so excited when this showed up because this is the book that I have been wanting to finish for so long. I've started this book and I've read through a chunk of it, but I read this book in intervals. So I'd read and then put it down, and then once I put it down, I would never pick it back up again. I don't know why, because this is one of my new favorite authors, an auto buy author, and I was so excited to get this book when it released last year. And so it's been sitting on my shelf because every time I put it down, I stop reading it. And it has nothing to do with the writing. Like, I genuinely enjoy the book. I just forget about it or something. I don't know what it is about me. But that book is The Box in the Woods by Maureen Johnson. Now, if you have watched my channel, I fell in love with Maureen Johnson's first series, Truly Devious, which is a YA mystery, and I absolutely love that series. So when this book popped up in January, I was reinvigorated to read this book and get back into her writing because it is phenomenal. Here's what the cover looks like. It's stunning. It's purple. I just love it. And I cannot wait to finish this book and let you know my thoughts. I'm already assuming it's going to be a 4-star read because it's Maureen Johnson and that is what I signed up to read. But if you have read Truly Devious, the main characters from that series is also in this book. So I'm very excited to see all of them again. And it takes place in a summer camp. And so the lead detective, one of the main characters from the Truly Devious series, is now hired to come to the summer camp and resolve some of the mysteries that are going on. So that's the book. Super excited and can't wait to tell you all my thoughts. So, this next book that I ended up generating was on my top shelf, and so this was number 8. So, this is one of the first books that I documented, and I was stressed in the beginning, y'all. So, I didn't realize that I had put A Song of Wraiths and Ruin as a unread book in my pile. So I made a mistake. But I still wanted to show y'all because I absolutely love this book. I remember I gave this book a 4 out of 5 stars, but it's absolutely amazing. And I know book 2 is already out, I believe. But if you love fantasy and just like folklore, I would highly recommend this book. I absolutely loved it, as you can tell, because I'm about to show you some of the tabs that I have. It was highly loved, and I definitely, again, highly recommend this book to anybody. But again, I made a mistake in this generated list. I already read this book, so I'm just going to move on to the next book. So after that fiasco and the fact that I was filming now into 1 o'clock in the morning, I decided that the last book that I was going to pick was not going to be a randomly generated one, but one that I have been looking forward to reading for so long. And I've been looking for a hardcover copy of this book because I have book 1 and book 3 in hardcover, so I really wanted book 2, and I just couldn't find it anywhere. But I finally got my hands on it after the holiday season, and this is Kingsbane by Claire Legrand. And this book has been on the top of my TBR list for so long. Well, ever since I read Furyborn, which is book 1. And I absolutely loved Furyborn. If you haven't read it, go ahead and read it because it's fantastic. If you love fantasy, if you love multiple POVs, if you love different, dynamic, diverse, morally gray characters, it's just everything that I love in a series in that book. And now that I get to continue this story, I'm just so excited for. And you'll know in the outro that I actually did end up reading this after I filmed this video or filmed this clip. I read it before I went to bed last night. So I just am already telling you, read this series, read this book. So glad that I made this decision to include this as a personal choice of mine to definitely read in my January TBR. So I just can't rave about it enough. So excited for the month of January. But yes, that is the last book that I have in my January TBR list from my unread pile. Again from Future Christine. I hope you all enjoyed going through my list of read and unread books as I make that spreadsheet, as well as I pick the random generated numbers to give me the list of books that I'm going to be reading in my January TBR. So in my January TBR, I definitely wanted to pick a number of books where I definitely was going to go and read them from start to finish. But I also wanted to leave room for books that I just feel like reading. I feel like every time I did a TBR video, I would choose like 13 books that I had to read, and I never would get to them. And so I think giving me space to read books that I have to read and books that I want to read will make me okay and be adamant about finishing the books that I start. But yes, I just want to give a quick wrap up of all the books that I read because I remember from last night when I was filming it was looking a little haphazard. But I'm just gonna go through the list of books that I have in my January TBR. So one of the books that I picked up was Nocturna, and I just love this cover. Like, it's something with red and burgundies and gold for me. It's just, I mean, I love it. Also, I want to mention that I kept saying like the first book I'm reading, the next book I'm reading, the last book I'm reading. I'm not going to be reading these books in any particular order because I just can't have that structure or else I'm not going to read it. So I do want to say, okay, Instagram, I hear you. Wow, unpopular. I'm just kidding. But yes, I do want to say that I'll be picking these books up as I want to read them. So in no particular order is this list what I'm going to be reading in each order, if that makes sense. Okay, I'm pretty sure you all get me. But Nocturna, the other book is The Box in the Woods. I mean, I just need to sit down and read this book from start to finish. That's my problem. Every time I read it, I'm like busy and I need to put it down and say I'm gonna come back to it, and I never do. So sitting down one time and reading this is also a goal for January. The next book is The Raven Boys. I think this is also gonna have to be a book where I just sit down and read it from start to finish because I own the entire series of this, and I've owned this for so long, pre-BookTube, and I never touched this book. So yeah, this is another book that I plan to read in one sitting, and I'm really excited to have some books that I'll read in one sitting too, because I do plan on restarting reading sprints. If you all don't know or haven't been to one of the reading sprints, it's basically a time allotted where I schedule a live stream and we all just read together for a few hours. So I'm very excited to get back into doing that with you all. So this is definitely a book I plan to read at one of those reading sprints. Next book I have is Daughter of Smoke and Bone. I really hope that I like this. I want to like it, but again, I think I already mentioned that I read this pre-joining BookTube as well. And I think the issue then was that I wasn't abreast to fantasy like I am now. Not that I'm saying that I just am the best fantasy reader, but I'm more familiar with a fantasy as a genre, like the way things are categorized, not categorized, but the way things are written. I'm kind of more in tune to than I was before I joined BookTube. Thank you, Christine. So I hope that I will get a better read out of this one this time around. Okay, the next book I have is A Winter's Promise. Again, another book that I've been eyeing, wanting to read, never picked up because I always said it's winter, I should read it in winter, and it never happens. So glad it's still cold, kind of still winter, and I will read this. But can we just talk about the cover? Like, I know this was one of the books where I'm like, I'm not doing justice to this book, doing that like awkward angle filming from last night. So here's the cover. This castle gives me like Howl's Moving Castle kind of vibes. And I'm kind of here for it. So there you go. The last book that I chose on my January TBR list is Kingsbane. And y'all, I started this last night. I already have some tabs here. And I'm just so glad that I have this book in the January TBR because I've been wanting to read this book forever. And I already told you why I haven't read it. But when I got back into reading this last night, I was just so enamored. I'm just like, yes, give me more. Because I've missed the story, I've missed the characters, I missed this world, and there's just so many things about this series, the way this book is written, that bring me enjoyment. So there's, you know, 2 different timelines, so 2 different sets of characters, and they're all just so great, like holistic characters that each play a part in the plot, and the plot. It's just read this series for real. I know I'm gonna love this series. Fury Born is the first book, Lightbringer is the book after Kingsbane, and I just okay, let me just stop. I also am loving this because it's also red and gold, and y'all just know my love for that, but I just am so glad that I'm reading this now because I wanted to read this month, so it was just fate. Alright everyone, that is my 2022 reading goals with the tracker and my January TBR wrapped into one video as my coming back video. I hope you sincerely enjoyed watching this. You all are so loved and so appreciated. I just want to send you good energy as you continue with the rest of your day after watching this video. Leave me a comment down below. Tell me if you plan on doing a tracker and or if you plan on reading any of these books because I am interested to know. And I always love hearing your thoughts because a lot of you come back to the comment section and let me know your updates on some of the books that I've read to let me know your thoughts, and I really enjoy that. So don't be shy, leave it down below for me. But I will see you in the next video, which is gonna be next Saturday. So I hope you all are excited for this year and for what's to come because I'm very excited. And just until next time, bye y'all.